Good morning, everyone. I hope we're all having a wonderful day, wonderful morning, and everything. The topic of today's video is going to be cutting the interior of the car. And we're trying to reduce some weight. And the main focus of this video will be cutting out the webbing out of the back and seeing how we can reduce as much weight as possible without sacrificing the structural integrity of the chassis itself. Some things that we're going to be using is this face shield, die grinder obviously, some cutoff wheels. You can use whatever brand you feel comfortable with. A couple markers just so we can mark everything up. We might need this blade just in case we need to cut a few things like some wires or clips. This little tool is something that I ordered online, and it has some attachments that you put onto this bit, and I'll show you exactly how to use this. This is for removing the spot welds that the body has from the factory. A little measuring tape just in case we need to measure out some stuff. Some gloves, and I highly recommend that you use long sleeves. I myself, in this case, I'm not using long sleeves. I'm kind of a hypocrite with it, but I do recommend it because you get a lot of sparks and little pieces of metal that fly off when you're grinding. So it's best to have protection like that. But very importantly, the face shield, you don't want any debris in your eyes, and sometimes the regular goggles aren't enough. Right now, I am sitting in the trunk of the car, what would be known as the hatch area from the factory. As you can see, everything is already pretty gutted. I don't have any interior panels. Everything's already down to the bare minimum, basically. And this is basically the point that nobody else goes past. And those who do don't really give much information. And that's kind of the aim of this video. We're gonna start off by removing the center brace right here. I've already got all the bolts off, and this is being held by 14mm and a few 17mm bolts. Easy bolt off of the webbing right here and the center as well. And this is very simple. Right off. Just set this off to the side right here. Probably about 20 pounds, which is pretty substantial just for a center brace. And this whole car is getting caged, so we're not worrying too much about the side-to-side integrity of the car itself, since it is all getting redone. First things first, we're gonna wanna go ahead and mark all the area that we're gonna be cutting. So if you look and try to figure out what part is actually necessary in the car, you have this tube right here, or this tub, I think they call it, where the wheel well actually sits. So obviously we're gonna be needing this. Then you have the support for the body up here. So obviously we're gonna need that. Then you have all this extra reinforcement that comes from the factory, which if you have like a stock car, that's all good and dandy for components that you want to keep wiring intact and everything all clean. But in our case, we don't need any of this. So what we're doing right now is go ahead and marking with a sharpie. And this is just a rough mark. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're marking everywhere that we're going to be cutting. So for example, we have the marks up there. Now we're going to go ahead and trace a line. I can't do this with my left hand, but imagine that I'm tracing a line all throughout here. That way we can remove the webbing from the rear. Then we have these support brackets. You might say they're not very heavy. This is where the stock rear seats bolt up to. As you can tell, there's little holes like this. It's like a dimple in the body itself. What we're doing, we're filling them in. I'm not doing this one right here, but this has 4 surrounding it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that little tool, the spot weld remover that we're gonna be using, is going to be used for that. That way we can drill it out, remove this bracket, and have a nice clean finish. Before I used that tool, I was doing just a regular drill bit, and it would come off little brackets, like for example right there or right there, but it wouldn't be clean by any means. Obviously you can see this is really beat up and not an ideal clean finish for the interior. This specific set I picked up off of eBay. I believe it was $13 shipped. Had to wait about a week and a half for it to be shipped to my house. But it's actually a really good deal. It comes with a bunch of extra bits. I think it's like 10 or something in the pack. And basically what this is, it threads onto this spring-loaded device. And it's like a hole saw right there. There, it's threaded all the way. And this little thing, that tip, is a guide So you set it to the center of your spot weld, and once it's attached to the drill, you push it on, and it spring loads inside of this mechanism itself. So it kind of guides exactly where you're gonna be cutting. Some people like to make a little pilot hole with a regular drill bit. Like I have a full set right here that we might utilize just in case if it starts to walk off. You'll just drill a little pilot hole in the center. That way you have a clean finish rather than something that walks off side to side. Just like with anything that has heat and drilling or cutting, it's always better to use a cutting oil, and that's basically up to your preference, what you prefer. So choose accordingly to what you have available to you. Most lubricants can be used, a little spray lube can be fine. You can also use the drop method of a little thick oil, completely good. Whatever you have access and you feel comfortable using. See, it just came off to the side with barely drilling, even using the little pilot spring. That's why it's better to drill a little pilot hole in some cases when it's slanted off or it's at an angle, because you could fall off of where you're trying to drill. As you can see, I have these 3 cleanly drilled out. This one wasn't drilling all the way for some reason. I'm not sure exactly why, but it's still separated from the body and the bracket. Pops off as easy as that. Just was being held by a little bit of stock, whatever this is called. I think it's seam sealer, technically. And that's with no paint or body work whatsoever. Compare this with that tool versus this with no tool, or that with no tool. In my opinion, it comes out a lot cleaner. And this bracket doesn't weigh much, but it's an extra piece that we don't need, and every little ounce counts. We're gonna come over and do this side now, same process. That way we can drill out everything we need, and then we'll start cutting the webbing out of the back. Simple as that. Another clean removal. As you can see, no bends or anything underneath the body. Very clean removal. Moving on to the next portion, we're actually going to be cutting now. And first thing when cutting, we want to measure twice, cut once. And this doesn't have to be exact, the markings are more just of a reference for you to know which areas you still have to cut. It's not like you have to follow the line, you just need to know what areas it is that you're gonna cut. So for example, something I wanna note right here, on the tub that covers the wheel, there are still spot welds. For example, right there, one right there, another right there, and then little bigger welds that come out and you can actually see them. We're not going to be drilling out these because unlike these support brackets that were unnecessary, these are part of the structural integrity of the tub. So we want to keep the tub intact. Some people cut all of this and then use tubing to reinforce the chassis right there, as well as make a thinner aluminum cover for the wheels. We're not doing that. We're just cutting out the extra webbing. So this body line right here, body line up here, and then all the way throughout. One thing to note when cutting or grinding, well, when cutting especially, you don't cut, for example, if I'm cutting this right here, I'm not gonna cut it like this. I'm cutting straight into it because you don't wanna cut at an angle with these discs because they're very prone to breaking if you do that. So for this, for the most part, I'm gonna be having to cut just straight against the body line. So just like that, we already have the bottom of this cut, I guess you could say is the technical term. Next thing to do There are a few clips on the body itself right here that supports wiring in the back. Just basically clip them out, or you could use some pliers and break them. It's kind of hard to do with one hand right now, but you just press that together and push it through. A lot of people who do all the race car stuff, not only for Hondas, but most cars, they end up eliminating a lot of this chassis harness, which is something that I might do in the future, but for the time being, I'm keeping the stock wiring just so we can make sure that everything functions first, and then we start eliminating things we don't need. So there's one body line cut. Next is to continue up here and then do the top portion as well. And you don't have to worry about getting it all in one go. Obviously, as you can see, I cut up until this point and I'm not overdoing it because it doesn't have to be one piece. You can cut it in multiple pieces and just take it slowly, measure twice, cut once. So we freed up this bottom portion and realized that there are still some spot welds holding this to a support bracket in the back itself. So using the same method that we used for the seatbelt brackets, we're gonna look for the little spot welds, just anywhere that there's a little dimple. We're going to drill them out, and then this will be free. That way we continue cutting and then seeing what else we can do from the back end. So I've gotten to this portion where I've removed all the webbing on this side, well, for the most part. I still have to cut a little bit up here, but that's not as important right now. What I'm looking at right now is this piece, which we're also removing, also has those same spot welds in the back. Although it is kind of hard to get at this angle because of the size of this piece itself. So like I was saying earlier, it's okay to cut in small pieces like I have over there, and that's exactly what we're gonna do over here. I'm gonna start cutting this piece, and once this is a lot more clear, I'll be able to use my drill and remove the spot welds. That way it has a nice clean finish on the bottom right there. And then I will continue over on this side right there. Now we've got a big old section cut out of the car itself. The next thing that we're gonna do, and if it's a street car and you're not doing a roll cage, I wouldn't recommend this next part, but the roll cage is going in, I think, next week for this car, so we can go ahead and remove this, is the seatbelt B-pillar, I believe it's called. All of this metal back here is a lot of weight. So we're gonna start off by drilling the rivets, or not the rivets, drilling out the spot welds like we did back there. So this little face can come off, and then we'll start taking little by little small pieces off of that pillar and being able to take out as much weight as we can from this portion. On the other side, on the driver's side, I'm gonna keep that portion just for the time being until the cage goes in. That way I can still have my seatbelt if I need to drive it. But we will cut the rear end of the, of the driver's side, we will. So right now I'm gonna start drilling this and remove that section right there. Drilled out a couple spot welds. I think I did 6 or 7 total. And this front piece comes off. And I'll just set that off to the side. As you can see, there's a little support right here, and there's some more beefiness right there. And that's pretty thick metal right there. So this is up to your discretion if you want to continue cutting from this point. Some would advise against it, some would say go for it. I think, and don't quote me on it because I'm just looking at it right now for the first time, but I think I'll end up just cutting a little bit right there. I think I'll get rid of this little bracket and I'll cut the back end right there and see what kind of weight that saves me. But I want to keep at least a little bit right here for the integrity of the door hatch, obviously. and then I'll keep on cutting skin around so it has a cleaner look. For everybody wondering right now that why this is all rough looking and whatnot, that's not the final cut. I didn't show earlier, but I also have grinding and sanding pads that we're also going to be including in the video of how to clean this up afterwards. I had one little spot weld right there that I was drilling out from the back. Now this part bends down. I have one cut up here, one full cut right there, and this whole piece now can bend. Kind of hard with one hand, but we're gonna start cutting section by section. Like I said earlier, nothing major, slowly but surely. Next thing I'm going to keep, I know I marked it right here, but I'm going to keep this support just so the quarter panel has a little bit of support for the body on the outside. But this piece right here and the bottom portion I'm going to cut off. So gloves back on. And I know I told you guys earlier, make sure to have long sleeves because it helps. And man, it really helps. My arms are burning up. And a hat would be nice too. This portion is a lot thicker, a lot heavier than the rest of the metal, so it's taking a lot more to grind it away, or to cut it away. And these sparks are killing me. Really are hot. Very heavy. Got that top portion mainly cut to where I want it. I want to clean it up a little bit, but nothing major. The bottom portion would be the next big thing. I kept the support right there like I said I would. I just bent it backwards a little bit so it's a little bit more flush. This I want to cut on both sides of this, but it's a little bit hard to get in right now. I'm going on to, I think, my 4th disc. I always make sure to have a lot. I think I have like 15 here just in case. So that's the next portion right there. Make sure to stay hydrated also, because I've already had a bunch of Gatorade. This face shield has saved my life. So much sparks and so much metal has been going towards my face, not only the eyes, but everything. Make sure to wear a face mask, it's very important. But also stay hydrated, it's a very big thing. I like how the car's coming along. I've cut a little bit in cars before, but nothing ever as major as this. And like I was explaining to you guys, it's better to take small steps, do small pieces. In this column right here, I cut like 5 or 6 slits into it and then started bending and cutting each slit individually. That way it comes out a lot easier and a lot safer as well, because you don't want to overcut and go onto the outside of the car or anything like that. But yeah, that's that portion right there. I'm gonna take a drink real quick and get back to it. I cannot stress how much I love that spot weld remover. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quick drills, and the whole support for the seatbelt at the top is free. So now I can just cut this right here, make a clean cut right there, and remove this back piece. Little by little, small pieces like that aren't going to be necessary. Obviously, I'll have a cage with a harness for both seats, because I might put a passenger seat in here for every once in a while. Little things that aren't necessary like that help a lot. A lot of people overlook them. Stuff as small as this or the support bracket for the seats, little stuff like that all adds up. So right now I'm gonna cut over here and take that support out. Started removing and this plate came off easily. There's the bottom section. Just sits like that. What I made sure and was very careful just to barely cut the surface of this. And on some parts it's not even cut, it's just almost like 90% cut through, and then with a screwdriver it kind of like just ripped off. And this piece is almost out. As you can see, there's still that support back there. I'm actually gonna keep this in the car. I'm not taking that out. Just like that, it was almost all the way cut, but it wasn't. I had to yank it off. There's that other piece. That's kind of what I did with the bottom. And this will all get shaved down and grinded down and sanded down and everything. It'll be good. This, I think, was a support for the seatbelt as well as one of the sensors for it. So I could cut this off. It's actually spot welded on. I could just drill this out and that's one less bracket. It's probably like a couple ounces, not really much, but I think I'll go ahead and do that right now. All right, picking up where we left off. Now we're going to start doing this side, the driver's side. There are a few clips just like on the other side for wiring, so we want to make sure that these are taken off. And you can do it clean or just rip it off as well, because we're not going to be using the stock clips anymore. So I've already got marked up for the most part what I'm going to do before the cage goes in, because once the cage I'll have a harness, but for the time being I'm still using this pillar right here, so I'm not taking off the stock seatbelt. But I will be cutting around right over there. Then you can see my line traces all the way back here. Then up this way, there's a few spot welds I have to drill out right here for the mount for one of the seatbelt brackets, I think, for the rear. And we're pretty much following the same procedure as we did for the other side. So just drill out the spot welds and then cut everything out with the die grinder. Now I actually am wearing long pants, a long shirt, all just old stuff, a hat this time because I don't want all of this stuff burning me like it was yesterday. Because I actually went to work yesterday and this is the next day right now. So I'm gonna put my face mask on and start cutting away. All right, so I have this section over here cut out. As you can see, I kept the back half actual support for the seatbelt and all of that intact for what I think is called the B-pillar. So that's gonna stay until the cage is actually in and I can put my harness in. Over here, I have that back support that we are gonna cut out just like we did on that side right there. And then I can start cleaning all of this up as well. One thing to note, and the big reason that this wheel tub is different than this one, is because it has the gas tank right there, the stock location. So this right here is where you put your gas in. Obviously, if you have a fuel cell, you won't need that. So, well, if you have like a forward mounting fuel cell, you won't need it. If you have like a stock location fuel cell, you might still use it. But it's a good thing to know that that is right there, so you don't want to cut too closely. As you can see, I already did around the body line, but I haven't gone into the tub itself. So kind of be careful when you're doing that. So with this side, I did take off the skin covering the seatbelt support. Drilling out the rivets, or the stock welds. Right now, on the other side, we basically cut this part and then this part, so it didn't take out so much weight. Although this part, we went up a little bit higher, and I'm gonna cut right here, since this is the thicker metal, the really heavy one. And then I'll cut down here, obviously. And I'll come around on this side, and I just came short barely of that support on this side. So once I go and clean everything up, I'll end up doing that side again. That way it matches this right here. And like I was saying earlier, this is still the rough cut, so nothing is final. We're just getting the main chunks out of the way. So I went ahead and cut out everything on this side. Took out the top portion just like I mentioned I would. For this support that goes to the tub, I was not able to get it as clean as I'd like. if I went with a short drill, I could probably get the spot welds out of that, but that's fine like that. I'm gonna clean it up when I grind everything down anyway. So for this side, I gotta say it's pretty much done for the time being. When it comes to cutting, there's not really much else that I can cut or that I want to cut. And if I come over here, everything's pretty clean right here. So that's all taken care of. Come back to this side. Might touch this part up just a tad, clean it up a bit. I got to cut this part to about the same portion that I cut the other side, just so it looks linear or looks good on both sides. And then the next part would be to start grinding everything down. And with that last piece, we are pretty much set to start grinding everything down to even finish, clean throughout the whole car, or at least the back half that we've done. All right, so I started grinding down this side already. As you can see, the edges are a lot more like smooth, I guess you could say. They're not completely smooth yet, but they are grinding down using this little grinding pad, which is almost on its life out. Now I have to do this side, and then after we get everything all grinded down, we can start actually sanding. Okay, so you just saw right there, it's 40 pounds, just over 40 pounds, 40.6 I think it said, of weight that we took out of the car. And if I had to estimate, maybe I've taken about another 15, 20 of cutting and stuff like that in the past. Although I haven't had a lot of like in-depth cutting as we did today. I have taken out little brackets before, so if I had to estimate, it's about a total of 60 pounds that we were able to remove altogether, which is pretty good just for the fact of taking out useless weight, especially since we're going with the cage right now. We're gonna be able to add more weight, so we're taking it away from where we don't need it and adding it to where we do need. So it's a great idea in my opinion, and it's something that not a lot of people know how to do, and hopefully this video was able to direct you in the right way and help you, show you some of the tools that were necessary and let you experience for yourself how it's gonna be doing this process. If you have any questions whatsoever, make sure to leave them down in the comment section below. Like always, please hit that like button, and if you aren't already subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe and notification bell. If you want to see some update pictures about everything, just make sure to head over to our Instagram @SlowIntegra, because I'm always posting pics over there. Early releases for videos are going to be posted there, kind of like hinting at when something is going to be coming out. And if you haven't already checked out our Facebook page, make sure to check that out as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate the audience and the support that I've been getting in the last couple weeks, and hope we have a wonderful afternoon and keep on enjoying your day.